Welcome to the Apatros review. In this episode, Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake from Marcus Nispel. Yep, the Platinum Dunes remake, as you can see here. Hi there, welcome back to the Apatros review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction action horror, with me, your host, Mila Sipka. Now in this episode we look at the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th, which was directed by Marcus Nispel and produced by Michael Bay and his Platinum Dunes company. Now this film came out on the 12th of February 2009 in the UK, the 13th of February 2009 in the US and Canada, and on the 13th of March 2009 in Australia. I remember watching this when it came out theatrically. Now, the film is released on DVD for Paramount, and this is actually the American disc, even though I have the Australian one, but I lost the cover a long time ago. I will cover the original Friday the 13th and its sequels in the future. Now, say what you will about the infamous big-budget Hollywood hackmeister Michael Bay, but the thing about him is that he was not only responsible for the increasingly atrocious Transformers films. The original was surprisingly decent, for I saw it theatrically when it came out, but all of the sequels are just pure crap designed to cater to the worst demographic in the market, bored and restless 13-year-old boys. But with his Platinum Dunes production company's unexpected hit of the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Bay also started off the post-millennial remake fad that in its heyday of the 2000s lasted almost a decade, or for remakes still mount up but not with the intensity that they did before 2010. Since then, many 1970s and 1980s horror classics have been strip-mined for big-budget remakes, almost all of which being inferior to the originals. I actually think that the remake fad was going in the wrong direction. Jim Wynorski, the El Cheapo version of Michael Bay, has stated that instead of remaking the best genre films and constantly disappointing the fans, what Hollywood should do instead is to find all the shitty films out there, and there are plenty of those, and remake those instead, by default making superior films out of those crappy originals. A bit of a win-win situation, really. I'd love to see a remake, for example, of something like Shadows Run Black, which was a 1981 slasher film, re-released until held over until 1986 to capitalize on the success of Kevin Costner. Simply see if the remake can beat the original film in terms of the overwhelming amount of nudity that film threw up. In the case of 2009's Platinum Dunes remake of the most infamous 1980s slashers, the 1980 Sean S. Cunningham film Friday the 13th, the film that really kicked off the 1980s slasher trend, technically John Carpenter's masterpiece Halloween, was the original slasher, but Cunningham took the Carpenter rulebook and simplified the rules to a very crude extent, making it impossible for wannabe filmmakers to stuff up, and which in its first sequence created the first installment, the final sequence, created the hockey mask MacGyver of serial killers Jason Voorhees, and became the most prolific horror franchise of the 1980s. Its success constantly embarrassing Paramount Pictures, who were ashamed of the franchise's notoriety but kept on making sequels until they sold the rights to New Line Cinema, who also made sequels but made theirs with intelligence that the Paramount sequels did not. Released right before the remake bubble burst, and around the same time as the remake of My Bloody Valentine, which had its original only a few years ago finally released in Australia uncut, this remake was essentially basically a regular Friday the 13th sequel, but with a substantially bigger budget that outclassed 1980s sequels, and also had a much higher degree of intelligence invested into the writing, even though the plot is essentially Jason's greatest moments revamp. We see Jason watch his mother's decapitation in a replay of the climax of the 1980 original, even hearing his dead mother's voice telling him to kill for her. His first attacks, as an adult wearing that burlap sack with the one eye hole in it, is replacing the torn sack of the infamous and iconic hockey mask. I liked how instead of changing the mask's design, the filmmakers kept the original look with the red triangles between the eyes on the cheeks. To do anything else would have simply pissed off the fans, and they're not a bunch to be trifled with, those guys. Who, in a weird attempt at subversion, they changed the final girl into a final guy, the brother of one of Jason's victims, who was only kept alive as a prisoner in Jason's lair because she reminded him of his late mother. Everything else pretty much a fairly average run through of the basic formula of the original 1980s films, although with more plausibility than those films had. Of that rerun of the formula, we have the same bunch of stupid 20-somethings pretending to be teenagers heading out into the ruins of Camp Crystal Lake to make out and cause mayhem. But this time there is a legitimate reason for them to be there. They are trying to locate a rumored cannabis crop in order to cut down and profit from it, which they do succeed in finding, but Jason appears before they can cut the plants down. And Jason's trademark habit of popping up in the random places, seemingly out of nowhere in the original films, is cleverly explained here by having old mine tunnels located directly below the original camp. The opening section, where Jason goes on his initial attack, takes up roughly 22 minutes of the film's runtime before the title appears, making this one of the longest pre-credit sequences in film history. The rest of the film takes place 6 months later, with the brother of the first group sole survivor, trying to locate his missing sister. Nowhere she's being holed up underground, while his path and that of Jason's also cross with a local group of holidaymakers residing in a rich guy's house. Said rich guy is Trent, played by Travis Van Winkle, who actually played the same character in one of the Transformers films, making this film sit in the same universe as that misbegotten franchise. Cue a lot of machete and various other implements of murder, kills, and maimings. To be honest, while I am a Jason fan, although I'm not critically impressed with the vast majority of the 1980s portion of the franchise, except maybe for Jason Lives, but in saying that I do love the films, the New Line ones especially, I never expected Paramount to have the balls to make another Jason film, or that Michael Bay would deviate from his 13-year-old market to make this. Funny thing is actually that Bay walked out of the film's premiere claiming there was too much sex in it. He should have thought of that before he signed onto the project. Asshole. But here we are with this remake, which is actually better than most of the original 1980s Paramount sequels, and equal to the original at least. So if you're a Jason fan, this is definitely one to get and see. You won't be disappointed. As for the gore nudity, well, for the gore, there are some pretty gnarly kills in this remake. I should point out that most DVD and Blu-ray releases of this film that have the extended cut, known as the killer cut in the States, but here in Australia is the extended version. We Aussies have the extended cut version only, not that I'm complaining, with machete mayhem, heads cut in two, and a woman burned alive in a sleeping bag. Even an arrow fight into somebody's head in the fireplace poker impalement through one guy's head through the front door. Pretty freaking full on, man. As for nudity, well, the extended version has more of that sex scene between rich guy Trent and one of his female friends, but not his girlfriend. 3 of the young hotties in this film, all being victims of Jason's machete, bare their breasts. But the funniest scenes where Willa Ford, having initially escaped Jason while surfboarding topless, is impaled by a machete through her head and her body briefly lifted up from the water, showing off her boobs before Jason drops her back down in the water. The funniest kill I've seen in this film, and one of the best kills in the entire franchise, but not quite as awesome as the classic being a person trapped in a sleeping bag kill that Jason Voorhees performed in Jason Lives and Jason X. That was a good one. That's probably his best kill. Nice gag, Jason. Now this allows me to give Friday the 13th, 2009 remake, that is, a C, a 4 out of 10, which makes an average film, but at least that puts it on par with the 1980 original. My provisional grade for the film, but we'll see if that changes. So, Friday the 13th, 2009 remake gets a C. It's average at best, but that actually makes it one of the best films in this franchise. Now for the DVD, well, an average remake gets a technical treatment that is strangely enough on a par with its quality and storytelling. First off, the picture is surprisingly mediocre for a big budget film. Slight ghosting in the text credits, a shocking lack of shadow detail during the many night scenes. I initially suspected my DVD upscale was to blame, but I checked the discs on a different play and found the same result. Paramount really likes to piss off the fans. The other films had better shadow detail than this, meaning you won't make out much background details except for the stuff you're supposed to be focused on. Clarity is good, but the color desaturation to make the film more bleak looking is just not right. The original films didn't use hypercolor techniques to make their case, they just went out there and did it in the normal way. A lesson those Platinum Dunes wankers forgot. Seems to be a Michael Bay thing. Now, the soundtrack is a solitary English 5.1, and I'm talking about the Australian disc here, in the 448 kilobyte range. Good enough for the job, I guess, but probably even better than the picture. Well, with 7 subtitle streams, including English subs, the DVDs of the Friday the 13th films have always been friendly to the hearing impaired with their multiple subtitle tracks. In fact, the Australian Paramount, this original Paramount releases were all had like 23 sets of subtitles for each film. And to be honest, the subtitles for this one are accurate enough. As for the supplement, this has 3 featurettes, essentially EPK type videos featuring the cast and crew as they promote the film. Not really a problem, but please do something more productively original instead of the usual verbal version of slapping your hands on each other's backs. And some alternate scenes that were left out of the film. That's it for the supplement. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Friday the 13th, 2009 remake. Well, it's an average film, best. It's nothing quite, I mean, it's not the best remakes around, but it's one of the better ones. I mean, and in the Friday the 13th franchise, it's a lot better than most of the 1980s sequels. In fact, the only Friday the 13th films I think that were actually better than this were, well, Jason Lives, which is Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X. Jason Goes to Hell is probably the best one of the bunch, and I got the unrated version, so we'll see about that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, now, I don't do requests, but if you want to know of a particular film in my collection, just hit me up in the comment section, I'll answer. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and that's it for this review.